Okay, welcome back to my channel. Let's get right into it. This is discussions between me and Karthik in the Cosmic Agency Free Chat Forum, Part 2, discussing how do we describe the astral. Okay, the astral is super frequencies that is in constant flux, pretty much an infinite super frequencies in constant flux with infinite amount of points of attention of consciousness that are in constant flux. So how do we describe what's going on there, make sense of it, and use that knowledge to our advantage to raise the frequency there? So this is the discussion about how do we describe it? What terms do we use? We want to move away from the 3D and the 5D and the separate Ds. However convenient that can be, I do see Karthik's point in how limiting it can be also. So let's get right back into it. I left off with, you're correct. I'm well aware of how the astral works, but for the sake of explaining things, I use these terms. See, even now, I don't agree with my own statement. I was like, yes, at that moment, 2 hours ago, I was needing to use these terms. And now my terms have changed because new information has been introduced. And it would not be wise to not change my belief systems or the way that I'm describing things if a new, better, more, a new, better, and more efficient, more effective way of explaining things presents itself. So, let's move on. So, yes, this is the terms I'm using. And he says, yeah, understood. It's just that those low astral parasitic beings may not be able to perceive high astral beings. True, they can't see above whatever frequency range that they're in. That's why we have more. That's why we have more power in the astral over these astral beings, being the star seeds and being more powerful. Okay, but he says, but how much each being can perceive depends on each of them. Correct. So we can't really put the astral in certain categories like low or middle or high. Well, we can, but it's a limited way of explaining things. So I see your point there. Like you said in your video, that it's where the middle astral, where the star seeds are more focused on. Well, if you are in the middle, you are also in the lower because higher densities include lower ones, so the middle includes lower. No separation. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. But I still hold to the fact that I'm trying to describe something that's pretty much indescribable. Yes, all the all the principle of non-locality makes everything all exist everywhere, all in one infinitely small point. So infinity exists in an infinitely small point, the principle of non-locality. So that's what makes everything meshed in together. That's what the ether is. So I do, yeah, there is no separation. But we live in duality and we're humans. So we have the illusion of separation, and that's what this game is all about. It's all about having fun with the duality, having fun with the illusion of separation, and playing the game. Just because, we come here to be limited, okay? We come here to be limited and have limited experiences because it's fun. It's boring to be so expanded all the time and to know everything, okay? That's like my biggest fear, is to be too expanded. And it's even happened to me recently where I feel too expanded and I crave being limited and having limited experiences. So my consciousness is in constant flux but I'm in control of how limited I am or how expanded I am. Just like Yazi is. If she doesn't focus on being limited, she'll disappear into the ethers. Okay? I'm experiencing that same thing. That if I'm not, that I'm getting too expanded and it's like, oh, I don't want to be this expanded. I want more of a limited experience. And so I limit myself on purpose. I cause separation. I use duality to my advantage to have the experience that I want to have. So my response to Karthik was, you are correct. But in order to explain what frequency level the entire astral is in, I use the middle astral as a gauge. There is a solid ground in the astral just like there is here on Earth. This surface is referred to the middle astral. Below the surface takes you to a much darker reality, lower. Above it to a much lighter density, upper. But I mostly report on what I see in the middle, or what I am now calling the surface of the Earth in the astral. If there are wars and battles going on the surface, then the frequency of the astral is too low in my opinion. If it is peaceful on the surface, then I'm comfortable with saying that the astral is in a high frequency. It's just a gauge like a thermometer. Like, how do you think Mari and them on the Toleka are able to tell if we're on a positive timeline or not? Yes, they have technology and gauges to judge it and all that. But I don't think Yazi needs those gauges. She can just look at all the timelines in the astral and see, hey, where are they headed? Are they headed in a positive direction or not in a positive direction? Are the starseeds doing what they're supposed to be doing inside the game, or are they not? Okay, that's my opinion. So there has to be some sort of gauge in, that they test to see what's going on in the astral. Blah, blah, blah. I said I'm not claiming that I know everything. I'm simply describing what I see going on there the best I know how. But you aren't wrong in any of the things that you are saying. It's just that we live in duality and we need to describe things as separate objects in order for our human minds to understand these in a more linear way. Mari and Yazi also describe things sometimes in things describing like lower astral. They do use that term lower astral. And they use the ideas of densities as separate things, even though they are not, and it's just a super frequencies in constant flux. I'm basically just trying to explain the peaks and the valleys of the flux as it is constantly changing. And I'm also focused on parts of the astral that my higher self is finding relevant. This is an important point right now. I'm only one piece of the puzzle and explaining my point of view. It's up to everybody else and their responsibility to step up and explain their points of view so that we all put the pieces of the puzzle together and get a clearer picture of what's actually going on if we want to win this game. Okay? So, we each have a piece of the puzzle. We need to be open-minded with each other, and we need to put these pieces of the puzzle together to get a bigger picture, a better plan if we want to win the game, because that's what it's all about, okay? The regressives are only strong when we are divided. Okay, in the next comment I said I'll do an in-depth video on this and talk about all the points we've made here. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, and I say it's like someone, the reason that I've been using these terms middle, upper, lower is because we have to explain things in dualistic mentality for our human brains to understand them. It's like saying to someone, go incarnate down on Earth, experience duality, but you can't use your human body or brain to describe your experiences. You can only use your soul and telepathy. It's just not practical being here in this low density. Although, if you did use just telepathy to explain your experience, you'd have a much clearer idea of what it was like, just as long as the other person could understand your telepathy as well. So I think you guys are kind of understanding my point here. It's like a catch-22. We're in the game of duality, so we might as well play by the rules of duality and transcend and break them as well. Both. Let's do both. But the main goal here is to have fun. Okay. Boom. Karthik says, I see what you mean. I was just talking about these terms that you are using. Swaru of Era used to use those 3D, 5D terms. She knew it's not exactly how it works, and she even said it, but she kept using it. It causes a lot of confusion among the people. When I first started watching all the videos, I still had many questions about this density concept. It caused a lot of confusion among people, especially when the video was about Venus was released. Many of the people were asking how the humans could be in 5D Venus and see 5D Venusians. Well, you see, that's the problem. The D's are a state of mind. We say from 3D point of view, Venus is a hellish planet, what exactly is 3D? It's a state of mind. We say 3D is artificial. Why? Because it's a false mental construct. Great point. Totally agree. A false reality based on cabal lies. Yes. So when we say from a 3D point of view, Venus is a hellish planet, what it means is that for an average human in the belief system, Venus is a hellish planet, but in reality, is it really? No. It was never a hellish planet, has always been an M-class planet. Many people on Earth have taken the picture of Venus through the telescopes, and it looked nothing like what NASA tells you. I remember last year, someone in this group posted a picture of Venus. He took the image with his own backyard telescope. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. The Swarunians don't like those terms. Gosha once said, when Yazi first arrived here, she was just mad at how people, Taigetans, made such a big deal about these terms, and also information about the Van Allen bands. These 3D, 5D terms does not explain how densities really work. So if we use it for explanatory reasons, it will not fully explain it. It will only cause more confusion. And at this point, I was like, okay. I need to take a real deep dive look at this and see if I can come up with a better way of describing these things. Now, I was a little frustrated because he wasn't offering me new terms and new solutions instead of using middle, upper, lower, 3D, 5D, 7D, whatever. He wasn't offering me new terms to replace them, and I got a little frustrated, and I thought, well, that's my job. It's my job to come up with the new terms. It's not his job to suggest the terms. So this is when my thought process really started to turn. When this new information was introduced to me, I saw the light, so to speak. And then he posted something from Athena, and Athena says, we no longer use densities with numbers. They mean nothing to us. You can't even define what characteristics each of those numbers have, and other people's attempts to define that fall short. Their explanations look elegant, but they say nothing, because they do not reflect the external world well. But still, all densities, or frequency vibrations rather, are intertwined. That is, it is not really a gradient in terms of location, but rather it is a fabric of intertwined realities with different frequencies as well among its fabric. In fact, you have cells depending on what ideas the beings that use bodies have. Because from the most expanded point of view, it is only energy, and it is always energy, with or without cells. Since in the end, they are only ideas too, ideas in that great mind. And I completely agree with Athena on this. Um, it's a pretty expanded point of view, though, and the cognitive dissonance that's going to happen with some people, trying to understand this. Um, if you don't experience what she's saying, if you've never experienced it, it's hard to understand it just in words. But this is where my thought process really started to change, and Karthik responded, best thing to do is not to use those terms. And I'm agreeing with him now, now that I've seen the light. So I'm going to be changing all of this, all of these things, all of these terms that I'm using. I'm going to be changing them. This flux of frequencies is a hard thing to not only navigate in the astral, but also in order to explain effectively how you're navigating and what you're perceiving in this flux of frequencies. Okay. I asked him if he travels fully lucid in the astral on a regular basis. I didn't get an answer back from him on that, so I'm assuming he doesn't, even though he knows what he's talking about. I'd like to know. I'd like to know how he would describe the astral, but if he's only going off of what the Taigetans are saying and he's not actually doing it himself, then he doesn't know the position I'm in, trying to explain the unexplainable. That's all my opinion there. Boo, 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 boo. And I said, as far as what Athena said, I said, Athena says they no longer use densities with numbers to describe things. Well, of course they don't. They're telepathic up there, and they can explain things by just thinking about them to each other. But that doesn't mean they don't mean anything to the earthlings, because we do give meanings to very limited things like densities. And and again I said all explanations down here fall short. I'm not Athena, I'm not Yazi, I'm Jake, and I'm just trying to explain things the best I can. Okay. So I asked him, what terms would you suggest I use? And he's saying, what I was talking about is those 3D, 5D numbers, how you will describe it. It depends on what you are trying to describe. I mean, the situation, for example, you said when you feel good and positive in certain areas while you astral travel, you call that area as middle or high astral. Well, what do you have to call it? Why do you have to call it that way, though? Well, I have to call it that way because those are the terms that I understand. Those are just simple, general terms that I understand. It's hard to describe things in detail. It's hard to describe the ether in detail without using duality. Okay? So that's why I had to describe them in those terms, because those are the terms I understand. And those are the very general terms I think people understand. As higher densities include lower ones, so middle ones include lower, higher includes middle and lower. Yeah. I see your point there. I said, yes, they are blended. My question is, tell me how you would describe it. Instead of saying, don't describe it this way, give me an idea. What's a better way to describe it? Okay, I think I'm getting into the weeds here. Boom. I said, I'm not Athena. I'm not on a spaceship talking to ETs telepathically all day. I said, I'm on Earth dealing with dumbasses. I can't talk to them in her language. It would be way over their head. Okay. Eliang asked me if I had ever been on the Toleka in the astral. The answer is no. I've never been on the Toleka in the astral. In meditation, yeah. Karthik says the numbers are not used because those are only averages. Exactly, and that's exactly why I use them, is because they are averages. So that's a good point there. Okay, so I made a joke saying, okay, so then I said to Karthik, I really appreciate your point of view here. This is really making me think, which it is. My brain kind of hurts right about now. I'm just like, and then I made a point saying, well, maybe for my next video, I think I'm just going to stare at the camera and not say a single word and just transfer my entire message telepathically. Let me know if you learn anything. Now, I'm making a joke here, but I'm also making a point. Okay? And the point is, I'm going to transfer it to you telepathically. If you can understand the point, then you can understand what I'm saying telepathically. Okay. And I think that's where the conversation started to fade off, and I started to make the videos. So I think that's where I'm going to end this video. I appreciate everybody on the free chat forum, and the discussion that's going on is amazing. Jack and Saya, you made some really good points about some stuff. Let's keep this going. Monica, thank you for being the most amazing administrator ever. You blow my mind at how dedicated you are to this disclosure in this group, and we're all super grateful for having you there to kick out all the trolls every day. All right, bye.